So yeah, Eric, I think the first item was from Donald and I, so we already have a bunch of stuff in 12.1. I think for backend, the weight we can take is about 130. That might actually go up because I kind of lost track of where Mario was with working on Elasticsearch, and he might be back for. I think he's sort of It's not going to like exactly line up with a development milestone because he's got sort of one task in flight. But I haven't spoken to him about it yet, so I might be totally wrong about that. But if he's back on plan, then we will have further capacity. So if you can prioritize somewhere, we can start sort of talking about what to cut. Donald, you also had front end capacity.
Yeah, we're at around 70 for the front end. Be nicer to get closer to 60. We might be able to get up to, yeah, let's aim to get closer to 60. So kind of in the same boat where we have a little bit extra in 12.1.
That's totally fine. Is there anything that sticks out to either of you that makes sense to get us a little bit closer to where you ideally like to have your weight?
I think I spoke to you a bit about this before, but I think I've put too much technical debt in this milestone, like when I was going through it, so I still need to remove some of that. So maybe once you've prioritized features, I'll go do that. The other thing that stood out to me was that I don't think we're quite there on the board's capacity line issue. So I don't know if it's actually ready to like go in, but I would potentially be okay with it. And then the third thing actually is something I haven't spoken to Donald about and just occurred to me. We do need to sync up on the front end and back end issues because there are many more that require both this release. And we just need to make sure we're on the same page about the priorities of those and if people are going to be available to work on both at the same time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Alexis and I spoke about the kind of WIP limit line yesterday, and it was a great conversation. But I think I probably agree with you there. So that's probably one that we can take a look at, potentially pushing out. But yeah, I'll take a look at both of these and adjust the milestones appropriately.
Cool. So yeah, mainly we're also looking for just like if they're in order, or if you don't have to put all of them in order, but like if the most important ones are at the top, that's what I care about there. And then
in order.
Yeah, we can just go from there. Like I don't care that like if we've got like 100 issues in there, that 99 and 100 are the right way around, because realistically, like, we're not going to be able to guarantee that 99 gets done before 100 anyway, because like it might be quicker. So who cares? So yeah.
Who created the 12.0 board? Who normally creates the boards before we get into a release?
Which board? The board that has just features, or the board that has everything?
The board that has everything.
Do you have a link to it, Donald?
Yeah, I should probably include that. That board. Oh, that one is specific to it's got the front end on there, but taking that front end label off. Yeah, who creates that board?
Not me.
Sorry, it's in the agenda. Oh, you don't?
Not me. So if it's not Eric,
I mean, it was Victor.
I'm guessing it was Victor. I don't know if we necessarily, like, if Eric's just happy to put them in like one list up and down and like not worry too much about the exact positions, I'm happy to just reduce the number of boards we use.
Yeah, I'm fine with
the board that. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's another board that I typically have been using. If you give me a second, I'll drop the link here. But it's actually by milestone, which may be less useful for the rest of the team, but it's more useful for me. And it is here.
Is that the one filtered by direction?
No, it has everything. There's actually two that I use. One is filtered by direction, and one is filtered, or actually it's filtered by direction. This one's basically just got everything on there. So I'm going to drop that here. This is the full one. And then I have so many tabs open right now. I'll drop the other one in a second. We can probably move on.
Okay, so Alexandru, you had a question, which I think also really needs to go to Eric. So please go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, I kind of generalized it a bit in a sense that I'm not sure how to address this specific issue where we want to deprecate and remove the dynamic milestone stuff, but I guess it extends more to my general question where how do we proceed with when like we have concerns and commands from customers asking like, well, that we should not do that because they kind of find it useful and they need it. And in this specific instance, I'm not sure we've got an alternative to replace the information that used to be on that page with something like for them to be using. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what should we do there. I have the merge request for removing that stuff and cleaning up in review, but I'm a bit skeptical on actually moving forward with it. I don't know. Should we find a solution for kind of making that information available? Maybe we already have it, and I'm just not aware of that. So yeah, I'll need some input on.
I'm just going to give Eric a quick bit of context here. Is that I remember, which was a while back, speaking to Victor about this, and unfortunately, I didn't care about it that much, and I remember he cared about it more than me. Is basically what I remember. Like, it's not really costing us much to keep those there, but I think his vision for how milestones would work and how boards would work was that like this should be replicable by other stuff and you don't have to go to a milestone page to find it. It seems like people want it, but like whether it's like that specific feature they want or whether it's the ability to do that somewhere that they want is hard for me to say just because I've not spent much time on it. I also don't think I'm going to check the issue, but I don't think, I think it was just added to a release a while ago, like a future release a while ago. So I'm not sure it was
Okay.
like super high priority. So we could just like think about it because like, I'm guessing it's probably not your top priority either, but I don't know.
Yeah, I apologize. I saw you ping me on this 6 days ago, and both of you, I apologize to both of you. I haven't been able to take a look at this one. What does the team think? Obviously, you kind of gave your opinion, Sean. Is that opinion replicated throughout the rest of the team from UX front end as well?
Yeah, I'm a bit, like I said, I'm a bit skeptical on removing that stuff. I just like, it doesn't make sense to remove something and remove some kind of features from people that are actually using them and like making them unhappy.
I'm in favor of removing stuff if it gives us a clear benefit towards a goal. Like if we have something to replace it from a product perspective, or if we want to drive people towards this part of the product, or from a technical perspective, like it's a nightmare to maintain, maybe we need to talk about that. But certainly the second part isn't true right now. Like this is something we basically never look at. So it's not.
I don't think that like we have an option of making this like adjusting them and making a predefined board with the information that used to be on those dynamic pages. That will be like an option to postpone it and just make those boards kind of, or like have a button that says, well, go here and define those boards kind of, or predefine them, but I'm not sure that's actually technically possible.
So we're removing functionality in this issue.
Yeah, for my understanding from people commenting there, they're mostly concerned about the lists of issues like throughout the projects within the group. Like they would be able to see throughout the projects within the group if there are still issues pending for that milestone that are not being worked on, or was the progress throughout the whole group, which is not kind of possible in the boards right now.
I'm dredging my memory. So I might be wrong here, but Alexandru, maybe you can confirm. So I think there are a few related issues here, and I'm trying to get them straight in my head. So we have project milestones, we have group milestones, and we have these dynamic milestones, which is what this issue is about. And a dynamic milestone is what we used to have before we had group milestones, where if you have some milestones with the same name in the same group, we will collect them together dynamically, and we will show you the same UI. And we also have a notice on the milestone pages that the tabs that people are talking about here, like the lists, are going to be removed in a future version.
Yeah.
But we haven't done that yet. So if we did that first, like this probably wouldn't be a problem because they wouldn't have access to the information anyway, but they'd probably also object to us removing that. And I think there's an issue that's quite heavily upvoted that says, please don't do this. So I think we probably got the sequence wrong here, and looking at the issue, it got moved milestone a lot of times. That doesn't surprise me, but my strong temptation here is to just put this back to the backlog until we can spend more time thinking about milestones again, because I think it would be a painful change for a lot of users. It doesn't really buy us a lot at the moment. We're not prioritizing like milestone UI in the near term, I don't think. So it seems like a
yeah. my understanding of it is that I'm not for a long time here, but it's like a legacy thing where there were no group milestones at the moment where these dynamic milestones were added. So they would group the milestones from the projects by the same name and just like sort of make a group milestone out of that. And now that we have the group milestones, it doesn't really make sense to have these dynamic milestones, which is fine, but we are not capturing that information within the dynamic page milestone, like being able to show the issues.
Yeah, and the reason we didn't do that for group milestones was because we wanted to remove, or Victor wanted to remove it anyway. And that's why I'm talking about the sequencing here as well, because like it's a legacy thing, but also maybe if we added it to the group milestone pages, we could remove the dynamic milestone pages. But if we add it to the group milestone pages, are we saying we're going to keep it in there? Like, I don't know. And I would rather
have we
not
like researched this at all? Maybe we could capture the users that are using it.
I am almost certain we haven't researched it, but there are a lot of upvotes on some of these issues, so we should do that probably. If we want to spend time on it at all, we could just say we're not going to do it for now as well.
Yeah, if we capture the users who are like talking about this, maybe Catherine could interview them and see why they're still on this and like what they like about it, and then maybe that's features we can look into adding, right? Or migrating.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that idea a lot.
I do too. So just process-wise, do we just move this to the backlog and then tag UX research on it, or label UX research on it? You want to take care of that, Alexis?
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Cool.
I'll move this to the backlog then, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
That's perfect. I think the time we spent talking about this is probably more time than we wanted to spend talking about it. So I think that's cool.
Cool. Let's move on.
Yeah. So Valmir, I think you're next.
Yeah, sure. So I just had this idea because I just created a merge request that will dequarantine a test. And I'm just wondering if other engineers in the plan team would be interested in reviewing changes in end-to-end testing code so that they would be familiar with the code base and also with the best practices that we are trying to implement.
I started typing, but I realized I was answering the wrong question. So your question is, you are writing the end-to-end tests and you are going to ask back-end engineers to review the tests, not you are reviewing the tests that back-end engineers wrote.
No, I mean, the second part that you said doesn't change. I mean, for tests that the other engineers are writing, I am still optionally reviewing them. But since we are working on implementing some best practices, some guidelines, and also dequarantining tests that are quarantined, maybe it would be useful for other engineers to, take a look at the code base as well when we are creating such merge requests without forcing them to do that, but optionally, so that they could get familiar when they are going to create some test or update any test, they are already familiar with the code base.
Okay, Alexandru, Brett, Jan, and Patrick, as you're the backend engineers on the call, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I'm okay if it's optional. I mean, not if it's optional. If we have to do it, I'm fine reviewing whatever code there is. I think when mostly, at least I'll speak for myself when I do write specs or tests. I would often look into existing specs and tests and kind of figure out what's the already establish kind of guidelines on doing that. So yeah,
I think it can be very useful to get feedback from you guys as well to improve the way we are doing things from the quality department perspective.
I'm just afraid that if we're doing it optional, like you might not actually get the feedback back. Yeah,
I would prefer experiment first optionally, and if you have time, you do that. If you don't, we'll keep trying for a while, and then if not, we can think about something else. That would be my approach in the first place.
Yeah. So ping us on a few of them, and let's see how that goes. And
yeah, we'll do that.
That's good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good idea to try it out optionally and then decide on next iteration based on this first experiment. I suspect that in future time constraint might be a problem, but I have no idea how big are these test changes or MRs, so we will see.
Yeah, I would say that some of them may be big change, some of them may be just very small change, so it depends. We can start pinging you in the smaller ones. And the second one is also on me, which is just a heads up that I have started quarantining some tests specifically for the plan features. So there are some links with the ones that were already merged, the ones that are waiting for something, and we'll keep an eye on them to see if they are more reliable, and if they are not, we'll try to improve.
Yep, so next point is mine. So this is just a quick update on Epic Tree. Like we discussed in last team call, that we want this feature to be behind the flag for 12.0. The merge request is ready to be merged now. There is one failure right now, which is around review deploy, and it is also happening for other branches, other merge requests, so we can ignore it. Although it is currently in conflict, so it will require to be rebased. What we did change in this merge request was that Brett basically took out all the backend changes and broke it down into smaller MRs. And those dependent backend MRs got merged into master. So those were purely API changes. It didn't include any front end. So we basically reduced the diff for this particular merge request because it was already going out of proportion. So this merge request is very small now. And so right now it only includes front-end changes, and those changes are already approved. Additionally, we also included feature flag related changes within this merge request itself. So in case something goes wrong, we have a way to revert only one merge request. So basically, once this merge request gets merged, user won't be seeing anything on the Epic page. We would have to enable the feature flag first to hide the older UI of Epics and issues, and then the user will be able to see the tree tab. So that was one thing. Additionally, as a follow-up on this feature, we would have to work on pagination. So this is something that we realized yesterday when Brett was working on reducing the complexity of graph query. So right now we have a limit of 250, I believe, on the complexity of the graph query. So what happens was that the data that we are fetching via graph query for this feature, if the complexity grows beyond that threshold, it would simply fail the request. And apparently, only way to reduce that complexity was to reduce the count of items that we are fetching in the one go. So right now in production, we don't have any such limit because the current implementation doesn't use GraphQL. It uses the traditional Rails API to fetch the data. But we already have a few epics within our production, which has like some 50 or 60 plus issues and epics attached to it. So we may want to limit that count. So what we can do is, so right now we had an RSpec failure due to that GraphQL threshold that we have set up. So in order to unblock ourselves, in the query itself, we have limited the count to 50. And again, since this tree app itself will be behind feature flag, we don't have to worry about the hard limit that we are introducing. But before this feature becomes the main feature, that is when we remove the feature flag and make it as primary feature, we would have to introduce pagination of some way. So the approach that we have discussed yesterday, both Brett and I, was that we would have the pagination implemented only on the top level epics. So for example, if epic A has like 200 direct child epics, so instead of fetching all 200 at once, we would have 50 epics fetched at once. We can decide the count, like how much we want to fetch on first page. And as user scrolls in, we fetch remaining ones. So the experience would be somewhat similar to issue boards. But again, Annabelle can suggest like how we want that pagination experience to be. But in one way or the other, we would need to have pagination. And so what happens in case one of the child epic has a higher count? Because pagination works easily for us in case we want to have it for the top level parents. So there we can have a different approach where what we would do is, if one of the child epic nodes, when expanded, if we realize that it has more than 50 child or whatever the count that we set, we would show the first 50 child, and then we would show a placeholder item. Again, this experience is already in place for group dashboard. So if you go to gitlab.com and go to the groups page, we have the code there, and what it does is that if you expand any group and if it has subgroups more than certain number, we show a placeholder item at the end of the total child groups, and that link would say like go to the main group page in order to view all the direct child groups. So that way we would be able to overcome the complexity limit for the child nodes as well. So that is basically the idea. In case anyone has any confusion on the way I explained it, feel free to ask questions.
Thanks for explaining that. Is there an issue? Because I actually didn't even account for this. And when you say pagination, it can also be like what you explained was more like a, I'm having a brain fart right now, but like a never-ending scroll type.
Yes,
yeah, it'll just depend at the bottom. Okay, cool. Is there an issue for that? So I can start.
I don't think we have it, but there is a follow-up issue. Let me quickly paste in within our document itself. So that follow-up issue is tracking a bunch of smaller items that we want to do as a follow-up on the tree app, because there were some major changes suggested during review that we couldn't get to before this one was ready. So we can basically break it down into. Yeah, so there you go. I've just pasted the link to follow-up issue. So this includes a bunch of follow-up items that we want to do to tree app. So I've added the pagination point to this one as well. So if we want to handle pagination in an entirely different issue, that is also fine. In any case, all the bullet points that you are seeing in the follow-up issue will be doing in different MRs. So you don't want to do it in one MR again. So that's basically the idea. And if you think that we can handle pagination in some other way, or whether we don't want to handle, Brett can answer it more better than I'm able to.
I may be able to get the complexity reduced down significantly. I got to see if this other MR pans out or not. It looks good so far, but anyway, it needs to be reviewed and looked at a little bit more. But so that would at least reduce that. But we still may need pagination at some point. So.
Yeah, and if you need a workaround for pagination just because of complexity, you can tune, you can set complexity to, for example, 0 or 1 for the whole epic, and then you wouldn't be limited by the number of items. If I understood that this is a blocker that you are hitting complexity limit now, so you can overwrite it also now as part of your MR, and this override can be removed when Brett's improvement patch is merged.
Yeah, I think if we were implementing this with REST API, we wouldn't have, or like a backend API, we wouldn't even have this complexity question. Like if the backend API let you do something without pagination, we would just go ahead and do it. So I think it's great that we are coming up against this, but we shouldn't necessarily block the feature on it. Like at least not if it's behind a feature flag as well.
Mm-hmm.
So currently we aren't blocking it directly. Like we have just modified the query to fetch first 50 items for now until Brett figures out to reduce the complexity. So basically we had failing pipelines just to basically make it ready for merge, because we don't want to delay this MR any further. And if it can be merged behind feature flag, even with the limits and everything in place, I think we should do it. Obviously, once we remove the feature flag, we can definitely have either the pagination implemented or the complexity removed, whatever is best for us.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the pagination is applied even if you don't set the pagination limit. Then the default pagination to 100 is applied anyway. Yeah, just to make sure we are on the same page. So even if you don't set limit, the pagination is applied.
So is it applicable only to GraphQL implementations, or does it apply to plain
To
API?
GraphQL limitations in this case. So
Okay. Okay, so in case we don't have this first 50 or any complexity limitation set to it, then we would still be seeing only first 100 items, is it?
yes, by default we have limit that we load only 100 items.
Okay, because I'm sure there are plenty of epics on gitlab.com where we have more than 100 direct childs, because I believe we count both issues and epics combined as a child of any epic. So if we have 50 issues and like 100 epics are attached to any one epic, then we would be dealing with 150 items. So in that case, we are essentially hiding the results beyond 100. So if we want to roll it out, then yeah, pagination is one way. And yeah, Sean,
the pagination is on per, like the per field. So it's would be 100 children can be grabbed as well as 100 issues, or 50 or whatever. So it would be, you could get up to 200 items in that one query.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I meant per field.
Okay.
So sorry, I think I got a little lost there. Right now, if you did turn on the feature flag, if this was merged, you turn the feature flag on, and you have more than 100 direct children to an epic, are you saying that the ones over 100 are just, you just can't see them at all, or?
No, they won't be visible at all.
Okay. So we're looking to fix this before we turn the feature flag on.
Yes. Okay. And as Sean have asked, Donald, like, have we accounted for front-end capacity? So as far as follow-up on the follow-up issue is concerned, pagination is already something that I want to work on first thing before we even implement drag and drop, because there we are basically losing the results. So, and as far as front-end effort is concerned to implement the pagination, since we are not doing any UI changes, like we are not showing the paging bar where we have the previous and next buttons and everything, there is rather a straightforward implementation. We are just appending the results as user scrolls in. So the front-end effort is very little here, because we are already doing that kind of UX in other places. So just to clarify on Donald's question about efforts, yeah, should be doable in 12.1.
Yeah, so I think back to process side of things, I think we should create another issue for this, so we can just continue the conversations on it in that issue, just related to the one you created with follow-up, and then we can put it into 12.1 and get it done.
Yeah, so out of all the items that I have in follow-up issue, only pagination is the heavyweight one comparatively. So we can break it down into another issue, while rest of the smaller items within that follow-up are minor ones. So it should be doable as soon as this one gets finished.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think that is it. Anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I just added a point to say that the feature freeze is slightly different this month and then going forward, in that we are going to deploy to GitLab.com at least once a week, and then whatever is deployed on GitLab.com on the 20th of a month will be the self-managed release for that month. So actually stuff will get to production sooner. Like hopefully we reduce this whole like, oh, if it missed the 7th, it missed everything, which I think is quite a harmful model for us at the moment. Yeah. So you can bear that in mind as well. I don't know if that actually changes any of the calculations, but I thought I'd bring it up. I think that was the last item on the agenda. Let me just switch back to the doc. Yep. Great. Well, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining as always, and I'll speak to you all soon.